gentlemen, Richard Kenobi here, and I am back again for another Rick and Morty review. And today we have episode 2 of season 2, and this one was the one I was looking forward to the most because this was the one that was shown at Comic-Con last year. If you remember the little clip where Rick and Morty are in the garage, Morty's learning how to drive the hover car, and he says, what kind of business do you do in a garage? And, it turns out, Rick is selling guns to this mercenary called Michael. And I know his name is Tiberfius Michael, but I can never pronounce his first name, so I'm just going to call him Michael. And then he gives him, 3,000 feckles. And then, Morty asks, what could we possibly do with this? And, Rick says, Morty, you know what two humans can do with 3,000 of these? What? An entire afternoon at BLipS and CHiTZ! And they're at this video game arcade place, and it's so awesome, It's sort of like, this world's version of Dave and Buster's. It's huge, and it's big, and we get to see the game that Morty and Rick were playing at Comic-Con, the one called Roy, where Morty is playing a kid to an adult person called Roy, who starts out at life, he has a nightmare, and then, he is thinking about his future, and then he, goes to be a football player, and then he meets the girl and marries her, has a kid, and is struggling for a job, gets a job at a carpet store, has cancer, fights through it, then gets back to the carpet place, and then dies, and it turns out you can actually go beyond that, apparently, and this was awesome, and just seeing it done, fully colored and, well drawn and everything, it was really good, I liked it. And before this, Jerry actually comes with them this time, but, since we all know Jerry can't last 5 minutes off Earth, they place him in a daycare with other Jerrys, and oh my god, this was so crazy. And it turns out another Rick came up with this idea, and pretty much, it pretty much is like a kindergarten and preschool for all Jerrys, and some of them, choose to stay there forever, and become sort of run-of-the-mill Jerrys, they don't want to leave, they like it there, and it's really funny, to see this, I gotta give that caught me off guard, so of course, Morty says it's wrong that he sold guns, so he goes to he goes to Michael, and right when Michael's about to kill this ghost-looking thing, who Morty calls Fart, right when he is about to kill him with his anti-matter gun, Morty runs him over and kills him, and it's crazy, and then, of course, Rick shows up and says, Morty, what the hell did you just do, Morty? And of course, he says, great. So, of course, they gotta help out this thing. Well, Morty tries to help out. Rick just says, forget it, I'm going back to BLipS and CHiTZ, and, of course, Rick comes back and saves Morty, and then he gets in the hover car and they fly off. And, of course, they're wanted fugitives, well, duh, and they go to Gearhead's planet, and they ask what's so important about this guy, and of course, this little cloud thing can actually poop gold. I just don't even know. It's just so weird. And another thing he can do, he can actually latch onto you, and so I can't describe it. It's like, it's honestly like he's playing in your mind, and you're just going through a mind screw right here, everything goes crazy, he really, messes with Morty's mind. He doesn't control him, he's just, I can't even describe what I saw, you're just gonna have to watch it and see. But then, of course, we see that, the police eventually catch up to them, but, Rick says, who told them? And it turns out it's Gearhead, who, he didn't even know his real name. You know, but then all of a sudden, you know, Rick says, I thought you were my friend. He says, no, I'm not. And then all of a sudden, you know, Rick shows why you don't ever screw with him. He takes out his eyeballs, he grabs him, jumps at him, takes out his eyeballs, takes his gears, his gears, and he shoves them in his eye sockets where his eye gears would be. That was crazy. And you know, he says, let that be two things you just saw. Don't ever backstab me and get in. And I laughed. You know, this is why Rick is a badass. You know, he's not just a scientist who relies on his portal guns or dimension guns or freeze guns. He can actually fight. He actually has combat experience, you know, and that's funny. I like that. So, of course, they're on the run, and, of course, they, the fart manages to help them out, clear it, and then they go to this place, you know, where they can recuperate, you know, and rest, and then, of course, you know, Morty sets him free, but then all of a sudden, you know, Fart says, you know, I'm gonna come back, but we're gonna take over, because we've seen, you know, how rude people are sometimes, and you know, he asks, can he have one more musical, because this thing actually sings while he's in your mind, and it's crazy. And then, you know, Morty shoots him with the antimatter gun, killing him, and of course, you know, Rick makes fun of him, you know, and but he says he's really proud of him, you know, he's proud of him, despite him, you know, giving him crap, he's really proud of him. So of course they go to pick up Jerry, you know, and that's another thing, you know, they have to have numbers so that they can remember, okay, which Jerry is ours, you know, and it's crazy. And they come across other Rick and Mortys, and it's pretty much like, you know, it's pretty much like that one episode in Season 1, Close Rick Counters of the Rick Kind. It's sort of like that, you know, at the end. And yeah, that was pretty much it, you know. Oh my god, this one was my favorite. Even though I loved the first episode, this one was my favorite. You know, the jokes were everywhere, and the unpredictability here, you know, some things you didn't see coming. I like that, you know, and of course, you know, this show is just keep going and going. You know, this show is probably going to be the greatest show on Adult Swim to remember. It's probably, you know, it's already, you know, trying to, you know, dethrone Aqua Teen Hunger Force, you know, and it's a really good show. It's stuff like this that makes, you know, the show awesome. And like I said, if you have not seen this show, I highly recommend you watch it. Like, if you're a fan of sci-fi, comedy, you know, if you're a fan of combination things that mix together, then you're gonna love this show. You know, this show has the comedy writing is amazing, and the sci-fi elements are awesome. So if you're a fan of sci-fi and comedy, then you'll love Rick and Morty. You know, I mean, but if you're not a fan of these type of shows, then it'll probably, you know, be a hit or miss to you. But overall, a really good episode. I cannot wait for the third one next week. So, yeah, guys, overall, I would give this episode a 9.7 out of 10. Really good stuff here, and, you know, I could not stop laughing. This season is really going to be better than the first one. So, yeah, guys, overall, that was my review for Rick and Morty, Season 2, Episode 2. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this. And until then, guys, this is Richard Kenobi saying, may the Force be with you. Later, guys.